So give me some ballpark audience size, like how, like total followers, and then like I think the email I got pitching you to come on is something billions of views. So what I'm sure you rattle these off to advertisers all the time. So throw me some of these numbers.
We're like 170 million followers now across the board. Majority of that built organically, so we haven't even really gone and acquired many brands, and built over 10 years. So that's our internal social numbers. And then from like a view perspective, it's pretty crazy. It goes up to I think this year we'll do about 240 billion views over the course of the year. So kind of gets to the billion numbers, and you kind of just that doesn't make any sense.
For today's interview, we talked to Kit Shilvers, the co-founder of a company called Puberty Group. Kit started posting memes on Instagram when he was 14, treating the platform like a video game and obsessing over what made posts take off. A decade later, that experimentation has turned into Puberty Group, a bootstrapped social media company with roughly 170 million followers and hundreds of billions of annual views. In a recent interview, Kit broke down how he cracked early Instagram growth, why wholesomeness turned out to be a massive business opportunity, and how he's trying to turn platform native virality into durable media brands, original franchises, and real revenue. Hello, I'm Simon Owens, and this is The Business of Content, the show about how publishers create, distribute, and monetize their digital content. If you want to listen to an audio version of this show, subscribe to The Business of Content wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, let's jump into the interview. Hey, Kit, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good to see you, Simon.
So I'm having you on because you run this company that has just absolutely monster reach especially across social media. It's called a Puberty Group. Is that what it's called?
That's the one, yeah.
And I know that you're only, I think you're only like, what, 25 years old now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you started this company all the way back when you were, what, 14, and you started with a friend. So take me to 14-year-old Kit, 2014, 2015. What were you doing?
Yeah, God. Yeah, what a time. Yeah, I was 14 years old. And actually, prior to being 14, I'd done a lot of testing on Facebook, actually. So I started what is now puberty later on in the journey, but I had a lot of failures even before 14. I created Facebook pages and no one liked them. They got like 2 likes when I was like 12. And I look back, I completely forgot about it for a period of time, actually. And then I realized a few years ago, and I was like, what was I doing?
What were the Facebook pages about?
I had one, right, which was waving to the security camera to say hi or something like that. It was like the weirdest name possible. I thought that was like catchy, 12-year-old me, and it just didn't catch on.
And it was just like what, memes and stuff like that?
It was just memes, yeah. It was just essentially catchy memes, and they were like old school memes, and it's like block text at the top and then at the bottom. The
stuff you saw on Reddit. What was it? Something animals. I forget what the name of those. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yes, you know the ones.
Advice animals. I forget. Yeah. Keep on. Okay, so keep
like
on going.
Memes and all that sort of thing. But yeah, it was in 2014 when I found out I was actually good at it through a lot of trial and error, and that was when I created a soccer page. So I played soccer a lot during that time. Obviously, big in the UK. And then it was during the World Cup where I saw a few other pages popping up, and I saw that there wasn't really anyone doing it for news, like really fast news coming out of the games, out of live games. And I was like, why don't I just start to post that? Why don't I be the one to break on Instagram? Because people were doing it on Twitter at the time, and there were a lot of sort of media outlets doing it on Facebook, but there wasn't really anyone doing it on Instagram. So I thought, you know what, let me just test this out. It looks pretty fun. Instagram's fairly new. And yeah, over the period of 6 months, I posted 30 times a day. I was just posting over and over and over again. And again, I was a gamer at the time. So this sort of just felt like another version of a game, right? It felt like I was just uploading, oh yeah, this posted better than this one, so I need to post more of this one. It was very much like a gaming mentality. And over the period of 6 months, I grew it to tens of thousands of followers. And what was really interesting that I found during that time was you end up finding communities, right? So as I was doing this, I got to 10, 20, 30,000 followers, and there were other kids around the world doing the same thing, but in completely different niches. So then we all got together in a Kik chat and a group chat actually, and we shared knowledge and we're like, hey, this is working, this isn't working. So there were like maybe 10, 15 of us around the world. I remember people in like Colombia through to Saudi Arabia at the time, and you just share knowledge. Like, oh, have you guys tried this little tip? And use this hashtag. And yeah, long story short, that grew to 1 million followers in about a year and a half.
The sports account you were running.
Yes.
What was that? What was that account called?
So it was called football.news. And it was literally just football news. It was, again, primarily around the World Cup. And so I was tapping into that cultural moment that everyone knows about. And just shot up.
Yeah, and so Instagram at this point mainly just used for personal profiles. Like obviously a lot of brands had like a brand page, but like there wasn't, if there was video, it was maybe only 15-second video, and it certainly wasn't, there was no algorithm. It was mainly a following feed. What were you actually posting? Was it just still images with like headlines? Like what were you putting on there?
Yeah, a lot of it was actually just static text posts of updates of the game. So it's like Real Madrid 1, Barcelona 0, Real Madrid 2, Barcelona 0, like that sort of thing where it's really basic, but it gets shared at the time. And I think a really interesting point is that at this time, Instagram didn't have a what's it called? It's like, I'm trying to think of the word. Didn't have a curated algorithm, so it was all.
It was just a following feed.
Yeah, it was all a following feed essentially. And what was really interesting was that there was an explore feed that, if you knew how to tap into it, you could essentially go exponential. Like you could, again, no one knew how to tap into this. It was so new. No other platforms really had an explore feed. You realized, okay, if you could post a certain amount of times, tap into these moments where people were engaging within the first 5 minutes, you'd essentially already get pushed straight to the explore feed. So again, like I said, a lot of it was gamification and understanding, okay, this works, so do this, essentially.
And so you said you were in this group of other people. Were they doing something to help you get featured on the explore page, or was it just trial and error on your part in terms of like you figured out some way to get that algorithm to like you in some way?
It was a lot of trial and error at the time. There were periods of times when you could help each other, but they didn't really do much. A lot of it was, if way back in the day, people did shout out for shout out and that sort of thing. That's like old school Instagram. If you remember, even in schools, friends would be like, hey, follow my friend, follow my friend. So there's a bit of that for a little bit of time. I'd say maybe 6 months, but ultimately it's trial and error because it's so unique to you. And really it's just studying the data. Like you look at it, you study, you understand, okay, a format, as we began to integrate images in, a format with a face facing forward performs better than a face facing sideways, as an example. And you look at the data to understand how much of an increase that is. And obviously doing that over many, many months, many years, it just, it helps develop your intuition to the point where things just become second nature to you.
Yeah. And so like what would happen when you get featured on the explore page? Like it would go from like 5 likes to like 500 likes, like very suddenly.
Oh yeah. You're bringing back the memories now. Yeah, I remember there was a period of time, it fluctuated a lot between 2014 and 2016. But ultimately, yeah, essentially you got put in there, you got boosted. I remember there were periods of time when you got boosted significantly, i.e. you could be like number one on the explore feed. So an example of that is you get put in there after 2 hours, say you have 600 likes, it gets boosted to 100,000 likes within 3 hours because you're at the top of everyone's feed. There were a lot of those sort of small, I guess, algorithmic changes that were happening. And you, again, if you took advantage of it, you just had to be on it, essentially.
Yeah. And back then, like social media was very still much following based. Like I'll have, like I'm on Threads now and I'll have these threads go super viral, like get hundreds of thousands of impressions, and it'll get me like 10 new followers. And I think that's true for Instagram and TikTok now. Like just virality doesn't equal new followers necessarily because people are just expecting the algorithm to show them the stuff they want. They don't feel the need to follow accounts. But I'm guessing back then the virality would convert to following a little bit more easily. Is that true?
100%, yeah. And this is where a lot of brands were taking advantage in the early days. There were a lot of fitness brands taking advantage because they realized that early door creators had such huge engagement. and no one had actually tapped in to their engagement. Like no brands had tapped in. So the conversion rate on some of these posts for brands were just so high. Even for some things that I created, I remember one of the drop shipping companies I created, I was only like 15, so it didn't do that well, but it was a poster company, and I was selling posters of football players as cartoons to my audience, and even the conversion rate on that was significantly high. So a lot of these brands that tapped into early door creators shot up.
Yeah. And so you're in high school, you're like what, 15 or 16 by this point when it really starts to go up. So you mentioned drop shipping. How did it start like turning into like an actual real business?
Yeah, it was. So again, still in high school at the time, still just focused on growing this audience. And it was really, I'd say 2015, 2016, when drop shipping companies would reach out to me. I again tried my own things, but I was focusing so much on the Instagram side of things. I wasn't really focusing on drop shipping as much as I probably should have. Um, but ultimately, it was these early door drop shipping companies like phone case companies, as an example, that would touch in to these unique audiences and these niche audiences, create custom products around those niche audiences, and buy these shout outs, as they were called back in the day, for a really, really low price. And again, the margins and revenue that they were making off of these early door creators were huge. And I was able to make some revenue. Obviously, at 15 years old, you end up taking $50, $100 for certain posts. And that was really when I began to realize that this is actually something that I could probably do full time, even when I was like 15, 16. Again, it wasn't huge amounts of money that I was seeing consistently, but it was enough to realize that if you created attention, that there was a job in there somewhere.
So like with the drop shipping, so these were like cut, instead of going through Amazon, they were creating some kind of products through like Alibaba or something like that, and then standing up their own kind of like e-commerce websites. And then they were reaching out to you and saying, hey, if you link to us in your bio or something like that and send us customers to buy iPhone cases or something like that, we'll give you some kind of affiliate fee. Like, was that the model?
Yeah,
Or was it, or
no, it was a bit of both. There was affiliate deals that had been done. There was one-off pieces of content, and the kind of brands that they were in the early days. And again, they tapped into audience pages, but also creators. Were phone case companies. You've got cheap watch companies that obviously look very aesthetic. You would have uh, a lot of early door gaming apps actually tapped into them. And again, they were predominantly the affiliate ones. Again, some of these startups would raise money and then invest into social media at that time, but there wasn't really a mastered plan. So I think some of that money, I don't know how well it converted, but there were a lot of startups in the early days that used, again, brands like myself, but they didn't really amount to much.
so you're starting to sell some ads. You're in high school. You're like, okay, this is like there seems to be a real market here. How did you take it to the next level? Like, obviously, it becomes a real company, and then you launch a bunch of new channels. Like I was looking at the Puberty Group website. You just have like 10 maybe it's more, but it's like at least a dozen different channel brands, and then each of those brands has pages on like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. So it's like diversified audience, diversified brands across lots of different niches, and then on each of the major platforms. So how did you go from a high school kid posting to a soccer Instagram account to something like that?
Yeah, it was a long journey. So I'd grown these audiences. I did this with my best friend as well. So Ira, who was in school, who's a co-founder of Puberty now. We did this side by side, and I got reached out to by a company called Lad Bible. So Lad Bible reached out to me. They actually DM me, and they were like, "Hey, look, we love your content. We love what you're posting. Do you want to come and work for us?" And I was 16 at the time, so I was still in school, and in the UK, you finish school at 16, right? So I didn't drop out of school, but I waited to finish all of my exams. I then left school and moved up to Manchester, where I worked for Lab Bible for a year and a half as an apprentice. And I think that was really helpful because, again, it was one of those moments when I'd already realized there was a job in this to some degree. But then being around a lot of very talented people at a young age, at 16, I was able, again, there were ex Vice people there, there were ex BBC, there were, yeah, incredible people that 16 where I could just ask them a load of questions and just be like, how does this work? How does this work? How does commercial work, etc. And I was able to learn a lot. And we grew their social media from like 2 to 7 million in a year, which is pretty incredible. And then again, as I said, I did this with Ira as well. So we did this side by side.
He went to Lad Bible too.
He went to Lad Bible too. Yeah. So we lived together in the same apartment, which was really cool. Up in Manchester at like 16. And then, left school. Sorry, not left school, left Lad Bible. And then we started our own brands. And that's when I founded Puberty and Ira founded Memezar. So, yeah.
Okay, so you're running these accounts as you're still at Lad Bible, and for context, Lad Bible was just like a viral publisher, right? Like they were sending, like during the height of the Facebook days, they were, it was like a kind of like a lesser BuzzFeed or one of those sites that were sending a lot of traffic and then monetizing with like native and programmatic ads, if I remember correctly. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's still around today as well. It's grown pretty significantly. I know they've done a lot of investments, etc., which is really cool. But yeah, I'm still close with the guys there. But yeah, ended up leaving Lad, and that's when I founded Puberty. And what I was aiming for was this gap in the market that, and this is what I say to people actually, is if I'm at a dinner table with someone, I can show them one of the Puberty recent posts, and they can understand it and they get it. And it could be anyone at the other side of the dinner table. That was really the goal I had when creating Puberty. I wanted it to be that global and also wholesome, positive content for social media. There was that gap. And it was really interesting the way that I found content at the time. And again, I don't think much has changed, but is Reddit. I think Reddit at the time has some really incredible untouched stories that don't get seen by majority of the world, especially in some of these communities. So I got involved deep in these communities, especially like these Made Me Smile communities that were brilliant, and they still are brilliant. And I tap into them, try and find these uncovered stories, and then share them on Instagram. And just from all the growth hacking that I'd done from the previous years, I understood what would work, how to package it, and long story short, it blew up to about 10 million followers in 2 years.
What blew up to 10 million followers? The soccer account, or now at this point you were running different accounts at this point?
No, this was the Puberty brand. So
you had just a brand. You had a page called Puberty.
Yes, that was when I created the Puberty brand, essentially.
Okay, and then so give me a hypothetical when you say there was a story on Reddit that you would then take and put on Instagram. Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so what I would aim to do is I would aim to go deep into these subreddits and find some incredible stories that often caused an emotion. And the emotion that I was aiming for is wholesomeness, like heartwarming, joy. And some of these stories had very little engagement, mainly because they're deep in unique subreddits. But the rest of the internet really would love this story if it's packaged up in the right way. So we'd end up finding these stories, talking to the people as well, and then sharing that to our Instagram. And again, that was unique content. So that was really unique content to us. And a lot of that was could be recognized by the world. Everyone would understand it as long as it's packaged in the right way.
So someone would write a heartwarming story of something that happened to them on Reddit as like a text post. And then what exactly were you posting to Instagram? Was it just a screenshot of the text, or were you somehow creating some kind of like image version of it?
Yeah, it was mainly images. So we would use, again, different companies, i.e. licensing companies, to use their images that related to that story. So it was essentially taking these stories that had not been packaged before, packaging them up, and then bringing them to social media.
And so it would be like you take the text and put it over images, or was it like a carousel, or was it like a video? Like, I'm trying to imagine in my head like what it looked like.
Yeah, I got you. So really, in the early days, again, this evolved, but a lot of it was tweet style text. So we would form these tweet style texts based on those stories, and it would bring them to life in a way that was really easy to consume. So some of these still happen today, right? It's like almost like the typical meme now has evolved to be tweet style or X style posts. That was essentially the way that we brought these Reddit posts to life.
And so, it was mainly that people were reading, like, even though it was images, people were reading the text on the image. That's how they were consuming it.
Basically, yes, yeah, that was how they were consuming it.
So you build this up to 10 million followers. Your friend is also running Memezar simultaneously. Was there some point where those two companies came together, or did they always remain separate?
Yeah, they did. So we grew them side by side as different companies for a few years, and then we came together to build Puberty Group. And again, Memezar had gone more so down the comedy route, and Puberty again had gone more so down this positive news route. And it was really interesting, again, the way that we developed Puberty was not only would we touch into positive, wholesome stories, but we'd also touch in onto sort of cultural memes and events. So certain things like the Super Bowl, as an example, that again, there are certain cultural moments where there's always huge engagement spikes during that time. So I think what we did really well with Puberty for that first, I say, 4 or 5 years, and we still do it today, but I think what we really nailed during that time was being the first to it all. I think there's so many more competitors to it now. And I've seen old school media move towards social in a way that they weren't at that time. And ultimately, we were the first movers in getting to that news, essentially. But yeah, going back to your point, I'd grown Puberty, I agree Memezar, and we said, you know what, makes sense for us to grow this together and have a company as one.
And at this point, were you selling like social ad campaigns, basically like sponsored posts and stuff?
Yeah, sponsored posts predominantly. And again, it was just us. It was us in the early days. We actually were growing the pages solely ourselves. So I think I grew Puberty to about 20 million followers before I hired anyone else on the page. And that ultimately led to us understanding what partners we wanted to bring on to the page at that time, when a lot of these other audiences were, I guess you could call, selling out, right? They ended up getting a quick buck for certain pieces of advertising that we didn't want on our pages. And ultimately, I think that's what led to us having a deeper connection with our audience.
So, like, as far as I can tell, like, you're kind of you're not a in front of camera type of creator. Obviously, there are lots of creators that are more kind of front and center. Was that never something like a part of what you wanted to do or something like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've never been asked that, which is cool. I actually, you know what? I started, as I was growing the football account, something I haven't really talked too much about. Well, I actually did YouTube. So I grew a FIFA YouTube account by just playing FIFA in front of the camera to about 20,000 subscribers. And I actually had to decide, should I go faceless or should I go as a creator? And Instagram was just larger at the time and I was seeing more success there. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to stick with Instagram. And over the years, I have done some front of camera pieces. I've done one where I interviewed Mark Zuckerberg, which was pretty cool. But it's much rarer than obviously as a creator. I do like it. I would enjoy it, but I just feel like I can learn faster being behind camera. Again, as the business has grown, we've got different departments. We've got a finance department. We've got HR. And although these things aren't areas that I want to manage forever, they're really interesting to learn about. So that was my philosophy with it.
And did you ever raise money, or was it always just bootstrapped?
No, yeah, always bootstrapped.
And so you both combine forces. What do you remember approximately, like, what year that was?
Yeah, that was about 2020.
2020. Okay, so the beginning of the pandemic, and a lot of my guests that come on this podcast, like, when you say, when did you blow up? And like, so many of them say 2020, because obviously everybody was stuck at home. There was just like huge explosion, not just in online engagement, like, across YouTube and Netflix, but then TikTok. That was really when it, gained power. So talk to me about that time. Like, what happened in 2020 and how did the pandemic help you in terms of, or maybe it didn't help you, I don't know, but like, how did that affect your business at all?
Yeah, it's really interesting actually. Even in the years just prior, I say the 1 year prior to 2020, there was a lot of change on social media with um, video content becoming much more prominent on the pages, right? TikTok, again, Musical.ly is switching to TikTok, and I could see it brewing. Then, as COVID happened, I think everyone again swarmed to social media, and we were primed um, to essentially hold a lot of this content that was really viral. So as COVID happened, we were at the forefront. We were posting the different challenges that were going on. We were posting support at the time, and I think usage of social media. I don't know the stats to hand, but I imagine it skyrocketed. And because we had some of the largest audiences on there, our growth skyrocketed as well, and we were able to really take advantage of that time. And ultimately, it was a really interesting time for culture because what we were, as I said, was positivity. We were able to share these really great stories at the time that gave people a lot of hope and they gave people support. And we often saw that content shift, at least from the start of COVID, where it was quite negative, to actually a negative reaction to COVID, for it to actually be quite positive, where I think people realized they were able to spend more time with their family. And there were all these amazing stories coming out of people having dogs for the first time, having kids, like COVID babies, as you know. So all these things, again, the shift from the start of COVID to the end of COVID was really fascinating from an audience perspective. And again, yeah, our growth skyrocketed from all that.
And like with TikTok, what was it like on there? Like, were you able to grow just as easily on there as you were on Instagram?
Yeah, it's one of those. It's a first mover advantage for sure. Like we were very early on there. We had managed to get a good relationship with TikTok quite early on, and yeah, we blew up on there, which was great. I do think it was a really interesting shift because as TikTok developed, again there were certain algorithmic differences between TikTok and Instagram, and over the years they've sort of bounced back and forth. But yeah, I think we shot up to a few million in the first year, and then obviously usage on TikTok increased as well. And even now, I think a really interesting point that we've seen across our audiences is, again, it's not mind blowing, but TikTok audience demographic is just considerably lower than other platforms. I think young people are just consuming TikTok, um, yeah, so much, and yeah, it's something that we look forward to in the future, just being able to build audiences where these young people are just consuming it hour after hour.
So you're one of these companies that chose to build your audience primarily on the platforms, and I don't think you have much content that you're just publishing to your owned and operated website. Um, so like obviously there's always risks involved with that because you're at the kind of whims of the platforms. I know Instagram has gone to war with meme creators over the years, where like entire meme pages with millions of followers would get wiped out. What was your experience in terms of any kind of anxiety that you were feeling, or any kind of algorithmic turmoil that you were facing? Have you had those kinds of scares like over the years?
Oh, yeah, everything, literally everything. And yeah, you're right. I think that's what happens when you're on someone else's platforms, right? I mean, to a degree, companies like Meta and others have this with the app stores themselves, right? But ours is definitely very it fluctuates a lot. It fluctuates. Um, and ultimately, that's what I quite enjoy because if you can keep at the top of it, it's great. I think it's a huge advantage to you because you often see others drop off. So if you flip the mindset on it, I think it's an advantage as long as you can maintain it. But as you say, there is obviously high risk to that. We do have a few different revenue streams that we have, books through to newsletters, etc. So we've got different strands, and we again on our commercial side we have white labeled content. So we have almost agency offerings, which is cool. So from a business and top level look at the business, we do have other offerings, but as you say, we're known for being a predominantly social based company.
But did you never experience something where you woke up one day and one of your pages had been wiped out and you were scrambling to find some Instagram person who works there to try to get it back online or anything like that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially in the early days. I'm sure I had 2016ish. I'm sure I had like, 3, 4 different accounts taken down. Again, I think again the social pages or the social media companies in general have obviously changed the way that they see brands like us over the years, which is amazing. It's good to be able to talk to them as well about what we can improve. But ultimately, the early days were pretty rough. I mean, again, even now, I think for a lot of other pages, all of our content is owned and operated, or at least licensed. So we have licensing relationships with Getty, as an example. But a lot of these other audiences out there, a lot of these other pages don't even have that. So I assume they're probably having very similar issues to what I was having in 2016. But we've been able to learn, as I said, over the years, understand, okay, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, how can we solve what we're doing wrong, and like make sure we got relationships with the right people. And ultimately, that's what you need to survive on social.
So you mentioned like newsletters and stuff like that. What are you doing on that front?
Yeah, we got a few different newsletters. My favorite being the dad jokes one. So we've got the largest dad jokes audience. We've got about 15 million followers of just dad joke lovers, and we post I think it's like two dad jokes a week, and it's just simply into a newsletter, and that's got I think about 80,000 subscribers. So yeah, big fan of newsletters. I think it's a great way for people to be able to convert their social audience to a bit more of an owned audience.
Yeah. And I was watching a lot of the content from your different pages. It looks like you're pulling mainly from other sources, like you said, you license content and stuff like that. Have you tried to develop any of your own kind of franchises? Like you look on like TikTok, you get like Subway takes and the guy who goes up and asks people like what their rent is. Like it seems like a lot of companies like yours that are kind of platform specific, like they're trying to build out show franchises with repeatable formats so that when I watch one video from this, I know what, and I see another video from that same account, I basically know what's coming. It's just going to be a slight variation of it. And then it encourages like binge watching and stuff like that. Have you built out any franchises or created like 100% original content that you ideated on your own?
Yeah, we have. We've got a few really good original format shows actually. So across the business, we've got about 25 different brands. One of my favorite original format shows is called Old Friend Club. So you might not have seen that before,
I
but
did see it. Yeah.
nice, nice. So yeah, we go into retirement homes and we ask senior people for life advice. So that's grown to about 2 million followers in a year, which is pretty incredible. Um, and we have one in Lincolnshire in the UK, so one home that we work directly with, and then one in the Bronx in New York. So very different, they're very different homes. And yeah, that content's done really well. It sticks to what we want or what we are as a business, which is around that positive content, that wholesomeness, and it's just these senior people giving life advice, and also a bit of fun, like them reacting to current trends and like
Yeah, I saw the
yeah,
one with the 6'7", asking old people what they think 6'7" means. That one.
yeah, that one did really well. Yeah, all these sort of things, which ultimately is really nice because it sort of bridges the gap between these people who probably don't really use social media much or even use their phones that much or on the internet through to like it's actually predominantly a younger female led audience that consumes this content. I think like 70% female. So yeah, that's really cool. And they're the sort of brands, and you're completely right. They're where we really want to head because we've got this huge audience, and we can use this huge audience to present new shows. We can present them. Hey, we've got like I said, an old friend club show. We've got this show, that show, and ultimately that's where we want to head as a business, where we're creating our own content.
And like, what do you think about like personalities in terms of someone starting a show for you and becoming kind of like the hot ones? What happened with Sean, where he became a celebrity in and of himself? Like, how do you think about that? Like somebody working for the Puberty Group, but also then sort of becoming their own kind of celebrity within it as some kind of recognizable show.
Yeah, I'm very, very inspired by all their shows, especially hot ones. And ultimately, definitely on our roadmap to get in because you, the difficult thing is you need to make sure you have a really good relationship with that person, right? I think there have been certain brands that just haven't done this very well. I mean, you look at not to name names, but you've seen them, right? People have brought in
BuzzFeed,
hosts,
yeah,
and yeah, BuzzFeed, right? Yeah,
yeah.
where they
The
brought in
famous video
people,
"Why I Left BuzzFeed" that became
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, where you bring in people. then the relationship deteriorates, and then the show deteriorates, and it hurts your brand. Ultimately, I really want to build something that's for the long run, exactly like Hot Ones, right? Where very inspirational. You just need to make sure you have the right people. I think you have the right resource as well, because we've done some of these tests in the past, and yeah, the format's there. Just making sure you get the right people.
And how have your brand deals kind of evolved over time? Like, thinking back to that time where you're getting paid $50 to promote some drop shipping platform that nobody's heard of. Like, how do you work through an agency? Do you have your own business development? And like, how do you work with brands now?
It's evolved pretty heavily. So initially, I was selling all the deals. As I said, I was getting inbounds. I was like, okay, how much, etc. Doing a lot of the exchange. And I was like 18, 19. I didn't really know what I was doing. So it evolved pretty heavily over the last few years when began to we began to bring in some experienced people. So the experienced people came in from different businesses. We were able to realize, okay, we'd maintain this really strong community. Because again, like I said, I tried to not sell out. I tried to make sure that the commercial deals that I'd been doing myself worked for the audience, and it's still something that I maintain today. I try not to create brand deals that the audience wouldn't care about. And as I brought those new people in, they brought in their experience. We were able to bring in their network, and we went from working with a lot of startups to a lot of what we call tier one brands. So those startups were early stage companies, and now we work with the likes of Fortnite, Meta, Visit Dubai, Saudi, through to Subway. I mean, incredible brands across the board, and obviously in increasing the quality of work that we do for them, we also are able to increase like the width of what we can do. So that's like holding events for clients, creating completely bespoke content, through to running brand socials, where we actually can then take our knowledge and be like, okay, we can run your social for you, because we know exactly what to do, and we could probably do it better than your in-house social team, and obviously at a fee. But these are the sort of things we've been able to develop from me posting through to, again, having our own what we call studio. So we have a studio that these brands come to. We come up with a solution for what it is that they want, if we want to do it, and if they think it's good enough, and then the sky's the limit on the size of deals that we can do.
So I was looking at your page of your different brands. Seems like you're strongest on like Instagram and TikTok, and a lot of your pages don't have YouTube channels, or if they did, the YouTube channel had a relatively small following. How do you think about YouTube and what the opportunity is there?
Yeah, that's also one that we invested in this year as well. So we've managed to, I'd say, crack it over the last 2 months, which is pretty good. We had quite a lot of failures early on, and I definitely learned a lot of lessons, just in terms of creating content, investing in shows, and the show's not working. The show, again, you have to understand that the YouTube's a completely different game. You have to make sure that you nail thumbnails. Thumbnails are pretty much like majority of the work in terms of getting people to click on the video. But yeah, ultimately we've been able to crack it over the last 2 months and create a few shows that are doing really well. So we had one get a few, like nearly 1 million views. And yeah, it's a big plan for us going into next year.
These
Is
are
just
like these are
scaling
like
that.
long form shows that you're doing.
Yeah, long form. If you call long form like 10 minutes for us, long form's definitely 10 minutes for us. But I know in comparison to podcasts, a little bit smaller.
What was the one that cracked the million views?
Um, we had one which was girls trying girl dinners, and it performed really well. It's essentially basically these young girls coming in and trying out girl dinners. So what a girl dinner is when you're at home, just a quick snack. Like, what do you eat for dinner that's cheap, easy to make, and it performed really, really well. I think, yeah, considering we didn't have the largest channel, especially the most subscribers, it's got to about 900,000 views in a few weeks. So
And
pretty
is
good
that
start.
and is that like a repeatable format, or is that just like a one-off video that you're doing?
Yeah, repeatable format is what we call X try X, which is, for example, we just released one which is actors try each other's dinners, or we're going to have one like Gym Bros Try Each Other's Cheat Meals as an example. So you can have all these different communities come together and bond over food, or we've done one with cocktails as well, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, so you're like kind of, I don't know if you follow like what Jubilee does, where they're kind of like recruiting people and having them, in their case, they're having them debate each other. But you can, I know the like New York Magazine, The Cut, they have people do like the button, these kinds of things where you're kind of bringing these random people and seeing how they interact under this very tight constraints, basically, of like whatever, like the examples that you gave, like Gym Bros trying cheat meals and stuff like that.
Yeah, bringing different people together, which I think is really cool. That's what I really love about YouTube, is the fact that you can actually get to understand people's personalities as well. It's much harder to do that on short form social. But we do have dad jokes as well. Actually, dad jokes on YouTube, not huge, but we primarily focus junkets on dad jokes. So we have two celebrities going head to head and explaining dad jokes to each other, and we've had some pretty big names in there, which is cool.
Yeah, so the format there is like two people and they're just telling dad jokes to each other and they're trying not to laugh, and if they laugh they get zapped or something like that.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, yeah.
So how is your company structured now? Like how big is it in terms of staffing, and what's kind of, when you think about the different roles, where are they concentrated?
Yeah, so we're about 50 people big. We've got about 40 in the UK. We've got 10 in the US. And then we actually have a lot of freelancers globally. So if you include the freelancers, it goes up to about 80, 90. And these freelancers are based globally, people in India, Nigeria. Um, and ultimately, I find the freelance model really interesting because we're able to tap into really top notch talent based everywhere. So we've got these social media managers across all these different brands, and we've got a pretty incredible way to hire these people. So what we do is it's pretty straightforward. We ask people on our Instagram, "Do you want to come and work for us?" And an example of that is we posted it on Puberty. We had about 15,000 people apply for one single job. So off of the back of that, we then have a long and arduous hiring process where we weed out the most talented people. And again, we don't care where these people live. They could live in the middle of nowhere. But having these people that come and love the audience, and they follow us, and some of them have followed us for like 5+ years, it means that they already understand what it is that they're going to come in and create. So that's a really fascinating way that I think, anyway, that we're able to bring in really top talented people, and they're very loyal as well. But yeah, other than that, we've got 10 people in the US, dotted around New York, through to the West Coast as well. And a lot of those are on the commercial side, going out, meeting clients, as majority of our clients are over in the States.
And then you said you had like 40 people in the UK. Like, what are their roles? Are they mainly business people as well, or do you have creative people?
Yeah, we've got creative people. So again, it's dotted across the different departments. You have finance through to recruitment, through to creative. You've got production. When we do these commercial deals, we've done some really incredible ones. We did a great one with Fortnite, um, and we did a whole production for them. So we need someone in house that understands, where is it that we're doing this production? Is it in the Middle East? Is it in the US? Do we have to use local events companies to make this come to life? How do you budget it up? Make sure that you're watching the cost of sale, that it doesn't get too high. You make sure you're using it efficiently. So production, you've got strategists, account managers, salespeople as well on the UK soil. Then obviously social media managers too. Again, having people in the same place, in the same office, I think in the social media world just takes you to another level, because it's just much easier conversation, right?
So give me some ballpark audience size, like how, like total followers, and then like, I think, the email I got pitching you to come on is something billions of views. So what, I'm sure you rattle these off to advertisers all the time. So throw me some of these numbers.
Yeah, for sure. So we're like 170 million followers now, across the board. Majority of that built organically, so we haven't even really gone and acquired many brands. Pretty much all of them, as I said, Old Frank I built to like 2 million in a year, and built over 10 years. So that's our internal social numbers. And then from like a view perspective, it's pretty crazy. It goes up to I think this year we'll do about 240 billion views over the course of the year. So kind of gets to the billion numbers, and you kind of just like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's right up there with like Mr. Beast's numbers. Um, when you look ahead, like 3 years from now, what do you want to be doing that you are not doing then that you're not doing now? Like, do you want to have some hit YouTube franchises, or do you want to be like have a Netflix series? Like, when you're looking at what's on the horizon, keeping in mind that you're a completely bootstrapped company, and so obviously, like any new expenditures, probably it's harder for you to justify. What do you want to be investing in, over the next 3 years?
Yeah, I'd say original content is obviously a big one. Like you say, YouTube shows, new brands as well, like Old Friend Club. I think having those just build a much stronger community than user generated content. User generated content is great for getting audience reach, but ultimately, it's only when you get to a really high level where you can build somewhat of a community around it. Um, I then would say being over on the ground in the US is pretty important. So moving over to the States for myself and some of the team, just because I think the opportunity in the States is considerably bigger than the UK. I think, especially for our audience base, it doesn't make sense for me personally to be on the ground in the UK when our audience is in the US, and the US is a much larger market. So for me personally, moving over to the States, then I think building products as well. I think that's a goal that, again, as you say, we're bootstrapped, so it takes us a little bit longer. But I'd love to venture out and build new products with our audience. And my goal has always been maintain the audience, because if I can continue to grow that audience, grow a community, building products should become much easier. So yeah, again, we've done it with dad jokes. We've had a New York Times bestselling book, which is good, but I think we can create some like really, really innovative products. Yeah, using our audience.
Do you mean like consumer products, like shirts and stuff like that, or meals, or?
Yeah, I think it can be a range of anything. I think anything is possible. Obviously, if you need funding for something like that, then um, ultimately there might be products that we realize, you know what, if we want to get this off the ground, we can't do this being bootstrapped. You need to invest in X, Y, Z. Um, Obviously, we haven't had those conversations or thoughts yet, but I think it can be a range of commerce, as you say, t-shirts, but I don't think t-shirts changes the game. I think ultimately you want to build an innovative product that people truly love, and also it isn't something that is just coming from your fan base. Actually, I think a lot of these companies or creators go wrong when you end up creating products that's just for your fan base, and then the fan base ends up realizing, you know what, the product's actually not that good. So then the sales decline, right? I think you ultimately just need to build a really, really good product that can be in Walmart and people actually care about, and people would just buy naturally anyway.
Like Mr. Beast, like Feastables or Chamberlain Coffee, or I forget what Ryan Trahan's like candy company is, but they're definitely trying to like go like one step above of just not just selling to their own fan base.
That's it, yeah. And I think ultimately, like you said, it's just building a really good product, and that's what I love to do. I love to venture out deeper than just social media into be how can we build some really cool products that people would just buy naturally.
Okay, Kate, those were all the questions I have for you. Where can people find you online?
Thanks. Yeah, people can find me on Instagram at SMK, just three-letter username. Then I've got LinkedIn as well, Kit Chilvers. They're like the two main places that I've got to go to.
All right. Well, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for joining me.
Brilliant. Appreciate it, Simon.